Hello and welcome back. This is ProTaleDev back with another Dungeon Architect video. This time I'm going to be looking at the dungeons specifically, and I might cover some more stuff that I've done afterwards if I get time. So what I've done is I've basically worked on those three types of dungeons, the volcanic and the lush and finally the ruins, and I'm going to be showing them off. I've got rid of all the excess prefabs that we had because we had a lot of broken ones, and you'll see here that we got the volcanic. So we got these small ones which are up to these ones. So if I just click on a couple of these just to show it the eye, we've got the little islands, kind of already showed them in the last video. They're all just like small little island set pieces that are going to be that spawning as prefabs. Then we have the medium, which are a little bit bigger, and then we finally have the large. But this is the I don't know if I showed this off yet, but this is the volcanic spire crystals region. We also have right here the plains volcanic, which is large, the jagged, and then final one is this one, which is the island, which is much more broken up. So you see that this is all of them that we got. This is the only variations at the moment, so just these four, so only one piece per type. And that's just because I haven't had time to get them all in, and I need a basic template for them before I start editing them and making new ones. So these are basically essentially my template versions that I'm going to be basing the idea off, but of course that they're also going to be used as well. Next we have the ruins, which is specifically the chamber rooms. So to start off with, we have four types, just like the volcanic, but they are different. So we have the trap chambers. So we have things like where the traps are going to be the main kind of thing to avoid, along with maybe some other monsters. We also have the specific rooms, which are usually empty, or maybe with just decoration in them, kind of like a little bit extra. Some of the rooms might be varied in terms of height, as you can see a little bit here. Of course, again, these are all the templates to build on. Here's another one right here, a little bit more edited in shape, and then we have some of these other ones which are a little bit bigger. As you can see, this one has been fully decorated. And then we move on to the next version, which is the hallways, or the corridors, if you want to say, which are much more thinner, like much more claustrophobic, arguably the harder option of the ruins. Then we have the final type, which, ignore these lights, they're not meant to be there, which are much more open in the ground, so that they essentially are called void rooms or jump rooms. Essentially, I want to give the option for the player to jump around and use these rooms essentially to avoid monsters if they're in desperate need, to be able to avoid them in a way that would be of risk to you. So moving on to the medium size, what we have here is the trap rooms. This is the only type so far, again basis, so that we can edit this later and make different types. We also have the medium sized room. Now these rooms are probably the easiest to fight in, however the added bonus of the difficulty is the fact that it is open, which means it's going to be difficult to get cover from certain attacks as opposed to other ones which are easier to avoid but the dangers are different. So next what we have is the jump room, or the void room, as I'm calling it, the void chamber, and again more open areas to jump across to avoid enemies, to help you get out of the way, but less places to fight. The next one is the hallway type, so where it's all really close quarters, it's open, you can't really jump or anything, it's very claustrophobic, and you've got to kind of maneuver around and control that, and be very, very careful you don't get caught in these sections. Then we have the large room, which is this is the first trap one. I've introduced this crystal in the center slightly, and we've also got the rooms, I think one of the first variant of height upwards that the player can get up to and jump around. Of course, the center difficulty is the trap, which is why it's called a trap chamber, because it is the focus point is this trap around the center. Next what we have is a room, simply as I mentioned on the other rooms as well, again easiest to fight in, but can be a disadvantage. We're also going to have a special kind of liquid in some of these dungeons, which is going to reflect the crystal type. So the green crystal is going to be more of a toxic water, Next, what we have is this void room. Again, even more open, a little bit easier to fight in, but even more open and more areas to jump, with this centerpiece being the key area. It might even very well give you a chance to take a second or a break, but could provide very interesting combat. The very last room we've got right here is the hallways, and we've introduced a little bit of a section of almost like small rooms, these sections with these kind of claustrophobic centerpiece of a cross. Again, this gives us a ton of room to be able to create our own hallways and interwoven mazes, which is what I planned for this type of large large region, but with hallways. So next we have the small lush regions for the type which is a lush grotto. And essentially this is just going to be more greenery, which is different to our lava aspect. So it's going to be in an open cavern, however it's going to be filled with water, and there's going to be these lights coming from the sky, which simulates that it's not too far away from the surface, like it's open to the surface in some places. But you can see that I've built this, it's just made out of dirt and grass, and in some places it's going to have stone, and it's just going to be filled with water, this cavern. And I think that makes a really nice environment, a little difference from the volcanic. You can see that we got these new tree types, which are I've introduced with a pack. Again, the details and the pack that I've used will all be in the credits as usual. And it's a very simple environment. So this is we have 4 different types again. We have the woodland. We also have the water, or specifically the wet region. Then we have a hill region, and then we finally have a forest region. Now, this is very simple. It's probably the easiest to fight in. It's pretty open. It's not too bumpy. So the woodland is going to be a really good environment for fighting. Then we have the water, which is going to have some kind of water feature at the center or at the sides, or perhaps the water will slow them down. I haven't quite decided what it's going to do yet. Next we have the hill. I think the hill is the most interesting because it's going to add the most versatility to the levels, to the lush region. Essentially you're going to be able to jump from the top and use this to an advantage. The last one we have is the forest, which is more of these kind of spruce trees and some of these dead trees, and the difficulty with this region is actually going to be being able to see the monsters coming. So visually it's going to be more hard to see these monsters. Now we move on to the medium, which is just a bigger version of each of these areas, so I'll skim through these as quickly as possible. So we got this like forest right here, we got this woodland, I mean, then we have the water feature, which is slightly different. We got like a waterfall with 2 water features at the top and bottom. Then we have the hill, the medium hill, which is slightly bigger. Oh, I accidentally showed the hill for the medium, so I'm just showing you the hill for the small region. So you can see it's more simplistic. We got some rock here and a very, very basic point of height that the player will be able to potentially jump off. What I showed before was this one, which is the medium hill area, and we've also got a more extended version of the forest as well. Now we get onto the large one, which is even more open, more trees, more woodland. Then we have the water feature, which is like a big lake. Finally, we also got these trees, which were the basic trees that we had before. These haven't been replaced yet. They will be soon. Then we have this, which isn't finished yet, which is the hill area. This needs to be finished. I've added some decorations in, but it needs to be finished yet. And then we have the forest right here, which is even more dense than before, but just as open. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually show it generate. So as you can see, what we got here is just our overworld. If I just play a second. In fact, let's go into our large screen. There's also a lot of changes in here, but you'll have to ignore them because I'll probably cover them in the next video. So as you can see right here, if we go and choose our weapon specifically, let's just throw in a bunch of things and then go into our adventurer guild. Immediately you should see what we have our standard setup. You'll see that we have our information right here, which has changed slightly. It's now actually working. We'll also have here left, This is how many days are left before a new dungeon is generated, and what we can do is, if I just quickly pause this, come out of that, and then quickly go to our manager. So what I can quickly do coming out of here is I can actually show you a dungeon randomly generating based on the days. So if I just press this and I'll let it run, what I can do is increase the hours, and every time it hits 24 hours it resets this number, it goes down by 1. When it hits 0, it recreates a new dungeon code which generates this. So if we just quickly increase the hours, you should see on the left, right here and here, that the numbers will go down and the dungeon should start regenerating a new code. So you'll see some minor changes as if I just run this multiple times really quickly, you can see how random it is creating. Let's get something like this. So there we go, we have medium, 3 days left, we have normal, and it's the lush grotto. Now we already have everything equipped, so what we can do is we can actually go into here. So let's do it, let's go into our dungeon. So as you can see right here, we've just generated a wetland. It seems like which is solely the water regions. Now they're all pretty much the same. The reason for that is actually because we only have one variant available that can spawn, one variant prefab in the medium. That will change, we'll have a lot more at some point. I just haven't time to build them, and this is going to be our basis that it's going to be based on essentially. But as you can see how it's spawned in. You have these little cut-off areas which I think work really well. You see all our monsters which are slowly trying to chase me. Now the text is still on these and the bars aren't done yet, but these are all going to be removed on these monsters. I've been focusing on the generation of the dungeon first before I go back to working on the monsters. If I quickly find the player right here, the player is hiding because I've put them there, and they're actually slightly bigger because I figured that they were just too small. And the cameras have also been altered slightly to make it so you can see a lot more of the environment. So that is everything that I've done so far, and so next what I'll be looking at is probably finishing off the shop, getting everything in the shop finished, and also maybe looking at some of the objectives again, kind of looking at some of the things we worked on earlier on in the game's development and kind of finishing them, so that hopefully we can get the island finished specifically. I'm pretty happy with the design of it, so I just need to get the shop finished. So this has been ProTaleDev, and I'll see you next time.